Hello everybody, the government of Alberta has just released its recovery plan, the long-awaited plan for how our Alberta government is going to lead Albertans back to prosperity and turn things around here in our province. Albertans have had a really tough go since mid-2014. Our economy has never been in a tougher position than it is right now, and we're all eager for some good news and something to look forward to. And so I'm wondering, is this plan going to work? Is this the right solution for Albertans? Let's find out. All right, so looking over the plan, it is very comprehensive. It's got an awful lot of information, lots of dollars, lots of text, lots of information here as to what the government of Alberta feels Albertans need in order for us to return to prosperity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you, and I will take you through the entire report, going through the most important tidbits so that you can zero in on the elements that are most relevant to you and your business and your future here as an Albertan. So let's go ahead and share the screen so that you can see what I'm seeing, and I will take you through our document here. All right, here we go. So Alberta's recovery plan. This is a 32-page document that outlines exactly what the government wants to do and what they feel is the path forward for Albertans as we look ahead to recovering and getting our economy back on track with building and growth and all of the great things that Albertans have been accustomed to for decades that we haven't been able to enjoy over the last 6 years here. And so what's inside the report is pretty interesting. I'm not going to get into the politics behind this. This is about policy to me. So I'm going to take you through what the plan actually proposes and whether or not I think it's going to lead to success for Albertans and if we're actually going to witness a change as a result of this. I'm going to try and stay away from a lot of the political rhetoric in this because you can never make anybody happy. But there is a plan here. This is our tax dollars that are being spent. And some of it is going in the right direction. Some of it could be done a little bit differently. And so let's start going through that. So what I've done is I've just made my notes, and yes, you know, I'm not a really great writer. I'm a good typer, but this is how I like to edit documents. And so I hope you can read my writing, but I will take you through some of the tidbits here that I've been able to uncover working through this. And it starts off with what our strengths are. All right, so even though it's felt like Alberta has been on the mat for the last 6 years here, it's important to note that we have the youngest and best educated population in the country, all right? And that is really important for businesses that are looking at making a long-term investment in the future. You want both of those things when you're deciding where you want to plant your flag. And so that's good news. We also have the lowest taxes in Canada, and these are items here that have been in place for a while, but the Premier and the government are going one step further, accelerating a tax reduction to attract more businesses and business development here to Alberta. So I feel that despite the challenge, our economy is actually positioned well for a turnaround here, and this is a good way to kind of kick off this report. Moving through it here, there's a whole bunch of text, and we're going over different things that we feel we can get out of this and what the government is trying to do. But long story short, there's $10 billion of new funding that's out within this plan, with additional proposals of being able to attract up to 55,000 new jobs for Albertans within this. So they're trying to spend the money to encourage economic growth and development, encourage more employment for Albertans, all of which I think is a good thing. So the highlights are here in that next page. But we'll go through all the details in the report as we're working through it to get this. So we're looking for relief and support for businesses, and we've been able to see here already as a result of the pandemic, we've had to have a response from our government. All three tiers of government have done their part here to try and make it easier for Albertans and Canadian citizens to endure this crazy pandemic that we've had. Have not had anything like this in decades, and this is certainly a very challenging time. And governments are showing up with some money for this. So we've already had $7 billion that has been put out here. An interesting thing in here now is we're trying to provide support and give confidence to small business owners here in Alberta. And so commercial tenants are not going to be evicted for non-payment of rent due to COVID-19. This is something that the government is working towards and is making commitments within their report to follow that up with perhaps some new policies or economic measures to make it easier for businesses that are operating here in Alberta to keep their doors open and avoid getting evicted by their landlords. So we've got some graphs here, a couple infographics with some money coming in for various different things. We don't get into too much detail here within the report, but you can see it here. There's some good figures for this, and all of these things are encouraging. And again, some other bigger numbers here in terms of protecting jobs. So we're up in the billions on a few of these with the income tax deferral for employers, the Keystone XL equity stake and the investment that the government made into that, and then hundreds of millions of dollars across other initiatives here, all of which I think are good. I just hope that this money gets spent the right way. That's always the challenge, is that it's great to make announcements. It's wonderful to make infographics like this to get the airplay and to roll out initiatives. But what will matter the most is how these programs are executed, and can our government deliver on the commitments that they're making to Albertans when they're promising to spend our money in such a way as to improve our economy. That will be something that we will all have to wait and see about. Looking at this again, now we've got cash for people, employers, again, some big numbers in here in terms of WCB premiums and waiver deferrals, student loan waivers and deferrals. That I think is an incredibly important thing because our population is so young and highly educated. They carry a lot of student loan debt, and the prospect of starting off on a business and being out in a new career while being saddled with a lot of student loan debt is really, really hard for young people to deal with. So happy to see this finally getting some airplay, and hope to see a little bit more on that. Education and property tax, some of those things, credit relief from ATV and rent relief, all of them are good news here. Let's just hope that they get out to Albertans right away and get out there in the right ways to ensure that the money is being spent efficiently and the whole Alberta economy receives a return on all of these investments. So getting Albertans back to work, that's a big theme within this whole report, and a big theme with the current government right now is to create jobs and create an environment that attracts investment for jobs creators. So one of the things that I started off with is talking about the foundation that Albertans have, at least within our economy here, and it's legit. It's the real deal. We've got a really great place to live in here. We don't get a lot of airplay on this because we seldom rank first in some of these things, but if you go to Calgary Economic Development, I'm on there quite often when I'm preparing presentations and for speaking engagements and that type of thing. But they do a really great job of scouring all of the different studies and reports that groups do on municipalities and how Calgary in specific ranks within that, and then also the Alberta economy shows up in that too in terms of how we rank. So generally speaking, from a Calgary perspective, we are one of the most livable cities in the world. We're one of the most affordable cities in the world, and that's echoed throughout many parts of the province of Alberta as well. And so great news there for Albertans, and something not to lose sight of. While it doesn't necessarily mean dollars and cents into the genes of Albertans right now, it is something that gives us confidence that whatever changes we're looking to make for this turnaround, for this recovery, we do have a very solid foundation of a wonderfully livable province, a very young and educated workforce, and a very entrepreneurial spirit here, which does get some airplay in the report, and it is the real deal, and that is worth making the investments like we're making right now. So good stuff in here for that. Investing in Alberta. So one of the things that we're looking at doing is creating basically a roadshow here where the government is getting a bunch of people, salesmen type people, to go out there and talk up our economy and the opportunities that we have here. All of the great things that I've just talked about, plus some of the economic benefits like the lower taxation that we're going to be witnessing here, how affordable it is for office space in our province right now. So we're going to be sending people out to some of the largest markets in the world to try and attract capital investment and job creators to our economy here, but we need to pick the right people, and they need to be saying the right things within the right rooms in order to attract that. That's something that within these panels and all of these studies and these groups, I would love to know more about how they're doing this, how they're promoting our economy and our province within these rooms when they're out at these conventions and these trade shows and meetings with other leaders of business in other countries and other economies to convince them to come here. That's something that is really important within our recovery plan and what we've got laid out here, and something that I would like to know more about as these dollars are being spent and these groups are out there. Next up, and so in order to send somebody out to go and promote your economy and to put the sell job on for the Alberta economy. And I've had to do this within my own career. Selling investment real estate is something that I've done for 15 years. And so I'm often out in these roadshows talking up the benefits of Calgary, Alberta, and I know how challenging it can be, and you have to have something to sell. And so the government is trying to give something to these groups to sell when they're out there talking up our province. And so one of them is making us amongst the most competitive regions in the country. And we're throwing BC under the bus here a little bit with the comparisons that we're making within the report. But compared to British Columbia, Albertans can save more money in terms of our tax position relative to them. And it's the same for many other provinces within the country too. So we're the most competitive in Canada, which is great news. And we will have by far the lowest corporate tax rate in Canada and the 7th lowest compared to most American states. That's really great thing. So you can see here in the graph, after this change is coming out, we're moving to an 8% tax rate for corporate tax in Alberta right away. The initial plan had been to do this in stages, but with the pandemic and the desire to get out there and get Albertans back to work, our government has made the decision to make this change right away. And so that's what we're doing. So you can see here we're accelerating the reduction in the corporate tax rate to, again, encourage businesses to start up, to help businesses that are operating successfully right now to grow themselves, to be able to create more jobs for Albertans. So I think this is good news. I like this because more money to consumers means more money for consumers to be able to pay their own bills, to be able to make investments that matter for their family, and the same thing for businesses as well. So that's good news, I think, there. In terms of supporting and creating a competitive business environment, we're doing this taxation thing sooner. That's a big part in this. And I think the intent behind this announcement is to say, here we are, guys. We are the most competitive most competitive jurisdiction here in Canada. We're doing all of the right things. Look at Alberta. Give us a chance. We're cheap. We're affordable here. You can set up your business here. So we're trying to give our promotional team the right things to be able to say to try and encourage investment here in Alberta, and I think that's a good thing. So moving through this, removing some barriers to job creation, so a little bit less red tape. The current government came in with this as part of their platform, and so far they've been making some moves on this, which I think are good. I felt them, and many real estate professionals have felt them here too, with changes to the Real Estate Act and our regulators. So all of that stuff we're actually feeling in our industry, and my indication is that other industries are getting more efficient as well. I'm sure there can always be improvements, but for the most part, I feel this is working. So we've got 200, the government's claiming they've got 200 red tape initiatives as of June 2020. But one of the key things in here that I liked a lot from this was that we're trying to remove barriers to educated professionals to be able to work within their field. And so they've got an example here as a medical professional. So they say, Jacqueline, who worked as a medical doctor overseas for 25 years, but after facing the endless barriers and hoops of the system in Alberta, she ultimately had to go through a diploma program just to find work in an administrative job in a medical clinic when she could have been working as a doctor. Every day, Jacqueline is surrounded by doctors who've got comparable training, but she's not able to care for patients the way she was trained to. So the government is looking to fix this, which I think is a great thing. One of the reasons that the real estate markets in other parts of the country have done so well is those are the hotbeds for immigration. So we've really opened up the gates and allowed more immigrants into Canada, and they've settled in cities other than cities in Alberta right now. And so what we're trying to do with this proposal is create an environment where, look, if you come to Alberta, you will have an easier road to be able to work within the profession that you worked in before you came to Canada, in an effort to encourage more people to move here to grow our population and grow our economy. I think that's a great move. It will mean more net migration to Alberta from other places, and I really hope that this program goes over well and is implemented in the right way. In terms of jobs, okay, well, we start off with a bit of a downer here again, where we're saying we're in the worst jobs crisis since the Depression of the 1930s. And oh my goodness, that sucks. It does really suck to read that, but that's what we have to deal with right now. Our generation is now forced with confronting this challenge and this reality and navigating a path out of it. And that's what this leadership is supposed to be doing for us, is showing us how to do that. And so they are giving this a little bit of airplay and some attention here. So one of the things that they're looking to do in order to change this is to sort of put some limits on the temporary foreign workers program, with the logic being that we've got so many people that are unemployed here in Alberta that there shouldn't be a need for a lot of temporary foreign workers, other than in a few select niches and fields. And so that's something that, I think makes a lot of sense. I just hope, again, that it's implemented the right way, and that the right industries that are have counted on certain types of labor in order to be able to be viable and successful aren't now hampered by a radical change in this, and that we can train Albertans to do some of the jobs that temporary foreign workers might have done before, and that Albertans are willing to take some of these jobs that the temporary foreign workers have done. So let's wait and see how that part of it goes. In terms of this, we've again got the Fairness for Newcomers Action Plan. I'm a big supporter of that, as we were just talking about. I think that's good for everybody, not only for newcomers that are coming to Alberta, but it would mean that Albertans will now have more people within some of these fields that can work within their dedicated professions, that are passionate about having an opportunity to improve their lifestyles here in Alberta. And I think that's a great thing for all Albertans, so I hope that comes together. Another part of this that we've seen is grants, not loans, grants of up to $5,000 for businesses that had to close or were substantially curtailed as a result of public health orders. So I think this is good for small businesses. The vast majority of small businesses have been very, very tight. It is incredibly challenging to run a business in Alberta with all of the challenges that we've had to deal with in the last sort of 5 to 10 years here. And so putting money in the hands of business owners care, and $5,000 for someone who's looking to get their business started back again, that small sole proprietor, that small business with fewer, not that many employees, that needs capital to order inventory, to get stuff going again. I think that's a very smart decision to inject that capital there. It will flow through back to the rest of the economy and help businesses to stay viable. So I think that's a good news there. I actually think $5,000 might be a bit light. I would prefer to see that be a bit more. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more in that coming forward. So again, talking about different things that we're doing here and what's happening. But one of the big parts of this proposal and the big splash within all of this is, $10 billion being spent on projects in every corner of the province. So we're really investing in ourselves here, and it's something that I like a lot. So it will make for a better living dynamic for Albertans. We're going to have better highways. We're going to have better infrastructure. It's going to be there for Albertans to do. We're investing in ourselves right now. We've got a great opportunity here within our labor market to take advantage of our own talent. And so I do think that this is a good move right now to be able to do this. Not only will it have a short-term benefit of getting Albertans back to work and injecting capital into our economy, but it will have the long-term benefit of having this infrastructure in place for when we start to grow again. And when we're growing with more people and we've got a better economy, we will have a lot of these main infrastructure projects already underway, which I think just means that we can then direct some of the new money that comes in back towards social programs and other stuff. So I really like this plan, and I'm really curious to see what projects are going to be happening and where. So we don't have that within this document right now in terms of what projects are being done. I'm sure that that will be coming forward later. And for Calgarians, I will look very closely at where those dollars are going here in our local market so we can get a sense of what is in there for us. But at the very least, we have $10 billion, 50,000 jobs for all Albertans, so that's good news. So we're looking here at the largest ever capital spend in 2020. In Alberta's history to create all these jobs. And so again, what you can see here is our government is trying to arm our business development team, if you will, with the right things to say to large corporations that are in other areas to try and get them to relocate an arm of their business here to Alberta. And so by saying that we're making these the largest investment we've ever made in our province, we're lowering our corporate income tax as much as we can, they're really compelling these businesses elsewhere to look at Alberta as an opportunity for growth and expansion and as a great destination to grow their businesses. And so I do like all of that in terms of making a splash and allowing us to say something that perhaps other economies that are doing a little better can't say. We are an affordable place to do business right now, and I think that that's good news. So I hope the world notices and that we see a benefit here for that. All right. Looking here now, talk again about investing $1.5 billion in the Keystone XL pipeline to help with pipeline capacity. So that was an announcement that was made a few months ago. They're just sort of reiterating that here, and that's good news. some additional projects here that we're talking about where we do have some dollars that are going out for things here that you know, I think are important. And then we talk about diversifying our economy. And this is something that just has shown up for about the last 6 years, really, since the first oil market shock in 2014. Not the first one, rather, but the last big one that we still have never really recovered from, to try and diversify our economy. We were experts at oil and gas development. This was our strongest suit by far here in Alberta. We were very, very good at it. And so when it was taken away from us, we've been trying to figure out, well, what do we do with ourselves? And now we're 6 years into this. And you can't just go and snap your fingers and diversify your economy. And it doesn't do anybody any good to look in the rearview mirror at what should have been done. We have to look at what's going to happen before us and what opportunities are we creating for Albertans of today and Albertans of tomorrow. And you can see here that one of the key things is that, you know, the energy industry, they do call us out. I do feel oil and gas is here to stay. But the energy sector is vitally important to the province and the country. Every credible forecast of future world energy consumption sees oil and gas continuing to dominate the supply mix for the next several decades. So oil and gas is not going anywhere. It's going to be used until we're able to come up with a different alternative energy source to take away, you know, the amount of energy that you get from oil and gas consumption. And so we don't want to talk about this. We've sounded like a broken record, but I do feel that, you know, with all of the good news that we've got here within how good we have been at developing oil and gas, you know, that we really shouldn't be, you know, doing what we've been doing to ourselves and getting in our own way here in Canada. I know a lot of Albertans feel really passionately about this too. And I thought while we were talking about this, I would share one little picture here that I got sent to me. I'll just call this one up here. One set of graphs. I know. We're not supposed to be talking about oil and gas, but I can't help myself because this is such a good one. But here's the top 10 or top gas flaring countries. So gas flaring is when you're producing or extracting oil and gas, or oil rather, and you just flare the gas off, so you burn it. So when you see these stacks and fire coming out of it, that's what flaring is. And if you look over here, you've got all these countries that do a heck of a lot more of it than Canada does, and yet we're saying we don't want to develop our resources and send them out. So Canada is actually very, very responsible in terms of how environmentally friendly our oil and gas industry is. And then there's one more graph over here with social progress. So, you know, is the government of these particular countries progressing socially? Are we seeing the rights and liberties of their citizens being, you know, honored and expanding and all of that? And so, yeah, Canada's awesome at that. So we're not only great at producing oil and gas, but we're also very socially responsible, unlike some of our competitors in those fields for both things. So it's kind of unfortunate that, you know, Alberta, you know, have to deal with this and because it's a very acute thing for our economy. But at any rate, that's unfortunate to see, and I hope that that starts to get a little bit more airplay here, and I'm sure that that will come up as our business development teams are touring the world talking about our economy and how good we are at oil and gas, because it shows that if we're that good at that particular field, we can be very, very good at other fields. We just need some investment to start to get ourselves going down that new direction. So just wanted to cut in there for a little bit to talk a little bit about oil and gas, because it is a passionate topic for all Albertans, and I thought it deserved a little bit of airplay. So at any rate, back to our report here and what the Alberta government's going to do. Now we're going to move over here to agriculture and forestry. So we've got 73,000 Albertans and $8.5 billion. You know, that's how big the agriculture and forestry industry is in Alberta. It's absolutely an enormous part of our economy. But these industries get some lines of text. We're not seeing a lot of dollars going direct towards this particular industry here, but we are saying the right things about that, which is good news. The same thing for tourism. 70,000 Albertans are employed within the tourism and $7 billion there. And one thing in here that I thought was pretty interesting that you don't hear a lot about is that, you know, we're looking at advancing the strategic infrastructure investments, including participation in the Canada Infrastructure Bank's potential $1 billion project that would develop a high-speed rail network between Calgary and Banff. So fast trains, I love it. I love anything fast. And wouldn't that be a cool thing to have developed here and allow people to visit our city and then fly into Calgary and be out on a speedy train out to Banff? I think that would be super cool. All right, so looking again here to culture. So we're talking a little bit more now about some of the more subtle things within our economy, but still some big dollars. So the plan over The next decade is to help to grow the cultural industries by 25% to 1.5 billion in the next decade. So the film tax credit is there for that. So good news with that. I think that's something that you know, everybody enjoys that and is a part of our economy that should be embraced more. And then technology. So we hear a lot about technology, high-tech jobs. What are we going to do with that? And so what we're doing here and what the plan is to look at programs along with an aggressive promotional campaign focused on top foreign graduates of U.S. universities who are not welcome in the United States for one reason or another, and perhaps inviting them to join Alberta's thriving startup ecosystem to bring their companies and their ideas to our province and create jobs here. So that's interesting that we would look at, you know, perhaps these groups that have not been able to find a fit in the U.S. and attracting them to Canada and to Alberta. I think that that's a great move to look to do that. So they're not good enough to do it at USA, well, come to Alberta and work here instead. So encouraging to see that we're looking at targeting groups like that, and I hope it comes together. In terms of attracting support for technology startups, well, this is something that Albertans would love to have. You know, we'd love to be this new tech hub. And we're trying to get ourselves there, and I think we're doing a lot of the right things. And some of the things that we need to make sure that these groups know is that, you know, it costs 1/3 the cost to rent office space here than it does in downtown Vancouver. So, you know, it's 62% less, you know, in Calgary than it is in downtown Van, which I think is a great thing. 33% less in corporate income tax. So I really hope that if you're a tech entrepreneur out there, that you're looking at this closely. And perhaps considering Alberta as a destination for your business. And what are the jobs going to look like, though? That's a big question. A lot of these startups are small. A lot of them take a while to be able to develop a product into something that's scalable and can grow and can create more jobs. So what is it going to look like? And is this going to be a major factor for our economy? I guess we will have to wait and see. But I do think it's going in the right direction. I do think it's a good read by our government in terms of recognizing this field as a field that Alberta could do better in and allocating more resources towards attracting employment to that, or jobs and development of that sort. So that's good to see. All right, another one here, aerospace innovation or aviation, aerospace and logistics. So we employ over 10,000 Albertans within this industry. They contribute over $1.6 billion to our GDP and 4 years ago. And we're ranked 3rd nationally by company size, 4th by number of companies, and 4th by GDP contribution. So we've got a pretty good aerospace industry here in Alberta. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is that we're seeking partnerships to grow and expand remotely piloted aircraft systems via leveraging assets such as our aircraft testing range. So that's really interesting that we're keying in on this, and something that I think is another good read. I just hope it shows up in terms of tangible results. Easy to put this stuff into a media release and a proposal. It's a different thing to convince this industry or convince others within this industry to move their businesses here to Alberta and to allow them to grow. But something I think is cool to watch, and maybe we will be a hotbed for drone development. Who knows? It'd be cool to see. All right, so finance and fintech is another one here. We're almost done here, guys. We've always been really strong in the financial services sector. Calgary has been a hub for major projects, billions and billions of dollars in the oil and gas industry, which is a multinational field. So we're very good at business development from that side, but what we would like to be able to do would be to take that skill set and apply it to industries outside of oil and gas, such as finance or financing technology companies. So we're hoping that other governments and other businesses elsewhere in the world notice us and our talent pool that we have here, and that we've got a significant cost of living advantage and abundant skill sets in real estate and a vast capital foundation. So really fertile ground here for those new entrepreneurs within the finance and technology industries to come here and take advantage of the resources that we have, and how well positioned Alberta is to support businesses that are seeking to make a mark within this industry that seems to keep changing and changing very rapidly. So we're very strong in this space, and I really hope that the word about this gets out, and that more groups elsewhere in the world are able to see Alberta for what it is, which is a great place to build a long-term foundation for your business, and hopefully those within the finance and fintech sectors see that. So that's good news there, and I think it's going in the right direction. And again, we're looking at emerging markets and other things in here that we're trying to do. So trying to look at, the government says here they want to examine our potential as a logistics powerhouse, leveraging our 2 large international airports in the central position to further enhance Alberta's position as a global transit and cargo hub, moving people and cargo between major Asian and North American markets, making it easy for Albertans and Alberta projects to connect to global markets. So this is the right direction. And again, I like what I'm reading here, but the proof will be in the pudding in terms of whether or not we can implement this. In Calgary, we've got this new terminal, this new international terminal. We've seen great growth within our local economy around the airport and all of the logistics and infrastructure that's there to support that terminal and the businesses that have been using it. So we're seeing some of that stuff happening, but if we're going to be doubling down on this and really trying to grow this part of our economy, you know, I'm curious to see how we're going to do that. And so great to read it. I'd love to see it. All right, so now we've got, yeah, exactly, can we do it? Is this what we're going to see? So in terms of a conclusion of my main takeaways from this enormous plan here, I like that we are investing in ourselves. I really like the idea of $10 billion into projects here in Alberta, up to 55,000 jobs for Albertans. I think that's a really great thing. Not only will it help us in terms of Albertans in the near term to pull ourselves up out of the incredible challenges we've had to deal with, but these investments will also pay dividends in the future as our economy looks to rebound and start to grow again. So I think that that's a really good thing to do. I'm also reading a lot of emphasis on industries other than oil and gas. So certainly oil and gas is a big one for us, but I think it's got to be obvious to all Albertans now that we are not going to be able to rely on the oil and gas industry in the same way that we have in decades past, that we need to progress and diversify our economy. And I'm pretty sure it is sunk in now with government through two different governments here in the last 6 years. This is something that has resonated well at the top levels here in Alberta. And we're seeing that with investments and proposals and business development initiatives in industries outside the oil and gas sector to try and diversify our economy. So despite how good we are at oil and gas and despite how much the world needs energy, that's never going to go away. Albertans will always be experts at that. There's some factors that are outside of our control, unfortunately, and presenting some headwinds for that industry, but it doesn't mean that we can't go and grow other areas of our economy. And I'm glad to see that being embraced and talked about within this report. So that's good news. And I do feel that the moves that the government is making to attract interprovincial migrants, so qualified professionals that perhaps can't work within their fields in other provinces within Alberta, can come to Alberta and have less red tape to be able to work here. And then at the same time, being able to pay less tax and live in a more affordable area. I think this is all really good news for that. And then, of course, an appropriate COVID response. I'd love to see them go just a little bit further with more funding for small businesses who know how to spend this money. You know, $1 is 100 pennies to so many businesses in Alberta right now that I do feel that support within that space would be very well received and would go the right direction in terms of helping to turn around our economy here. At a high level though, you know, my read on this is that the government is just like people in Alberta, where we're trying to adjust to a new economy and find our place in this new world. So what worked for, you know, generations in the past and for our parents and grandparents is not going to be the same thing that works for the generation of Albertans today that are making up the working class. There's no magic bullets within this report. There's no easy way to go and turn around an economy. So it's going to take some innovation and it's going to take some hard work, and building on our strengths will come down to execution. So a couple takeaways there, guys. And for me, let's stop the screen share here, come back, here we are again. So I do like what I've been reading here. A couple quick sort of takeaways from myself as an entrepreneur and a business owner for 15 years here in Alberta. If you have an opportunity to shop local and use a local business, please take it upon yourself to do that. If we're trying to grow our economy here in Alberta, one of the things that we need to do is try and keep our business, the money that we're spending here in Alberta. So if there's a comparable product that you know, you're looking at from, you know, buying something online or something like that, try and find a way to shop Albertan and use Albertan resources here if at all possible, because if we can keep that money here, it will go into the pockets of another business person and the employees at his or her business there to hopefully be able to allow our economy to stay stable and continue to grow. So Thanks very much for watching all this, guys. I'm very curious to hear what you think about the new action plan, if it's going to be irrelevant, or if it's going to be relevant to your business and your lifestyle. Feel free to leave a comment in here below. I'd love to hear what you think about it. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys soon. Bye now.